business people, and this is the part that we need to put a lot of energy into and has some of the greatest dividends. The key thing here, again, I'll repeat, is filmmaking sensibilities. Again, you really must understand how to tell story, what's important in a given scene or shot, and what filmmakers need in order to produce the best films. When you combine all of these things, you should be able to describe why you do things the way you do them. What is your methodology exactly? It's not enough to sort of buy a facility, fill it with some computers, hire some smart people, and then walk into a director's review suite with your shots in your hands and kind of go, well, look, we made some stuff. What do you think? And what do you know? Yes or no? Is it right? Tell us what to do. You're supposed to bring a structure to that. So I wanted to talk about that quickly. This will be impossible for you to read from there, but I will just sort of talk through it generally. This bottom bar is our, it sort of represents a timeline of the client interaction. And it starts with me getting a brief from a director, myself, or the visual effects supervisor I'm working for, and then turning that into a breakdown of work. So again, I need to take every single scene. Let's say it's that last commercial. I need to take the commercial, the storyboards, the plan, the design. I need to take every single shot, and I need to break it down into who's doing what, how are we approaching this, what are the mechanical building blocks, etc. But that's really just the starting point. Knowing what you have to do, and even technically how you're going to do it, is the baseline. The next step is deciding how you're going to get it through the director's process. And so I start with, yes, some very foundational stuff like key shot foundations, match move, roto-anim, the different components which are about setting up every shot. But I've chosen which shots to do before. I've chosen which are my key shots, which are my lighting angle groups. There's a whole way of dividing up a scene into how you're going to work on it. And then you start your progression of work that way. Once I got my key shots, which are my most important shots that will establish the look of the piece, I do my other foundational work. And at the same time, in parallel, I'm working on the design of the scene. One scene in a film might have a certain problem, which is that they filmed it under one lighting conditions and want it to look different. Or they don't exactly know what the sky should be behind, or they don't exactly know what the environment is at all. And in that case, I've got to get those design issues started right away. While I'm working on design and I've got my foundational work happening for a scene, some of the creative technicians begin their work, such as the lighting setup. The actual animation beats of the scene. If I've got 100 shots in a scene, I can't work them all up every few days or once a week to show it, so I have to produce it in sections that are manageable, specifically because of how I want to show the director pieces of a scene. I don't show him one shot or another shot or these shots. I show him groups of shots for animation. And that's true for effects or crowd work or anything else, any of your action stuff. Then I'm going to be taking those few key shots I identified that are going to establish my look at the beginning, and I'm going to put them into actual look production, lighting and compositing. As soon as my animation is starting to final, I'm going to move into another very important section, which is all of the 3D and action filing. There's a whole other step of cloth and hair and different ancillary effects that come on top of the primary 3D. And then I can do the final imaging, the final look, lighting, and compositing of the scene. Now so that's just sort of a broad overview of a way that you can schedule and produce shots. Now the dimension that's missing here is how it interacts with the client, which is the green bar on the bottom. So the first time the client's usually going to see something is at the design stage. Design stage is critical because I cannot light or make the final image if I don't know what the sky looks like, for example. Let's say they've shot it in normal daylight, but they want a dramatic sunset feeling or something. Well, I've got to establish that design work, and I need the director to say, yeah, that's the feeling I want. Then I'm going to start showing him animation at some point. He needs to see in a rough form, is this the intention of the action, and do I need to cut it differently or not? At some point, I'm going to show him those few key shots. Now, these shots should look almost finished. They've come from design through the actual 3D, and those key shots are shown in order for the director to kind of relax and say, okay, I'm going to see, my whole scene's going to look like this? Okay, great. Or, it's going to look like this, but I'm not really quite happy with this part. Well, I want to know that now. I don't want to know that later. I want to know it now. Because the next thing I'm going to ask this person to do is to finalize their cut. Because I need the edit to stop changing all the time. If the edit keeps changing, I can't finish anything. So I need the edit to stop changing. And I want them to have confidence that they know what their scene's going to look like. They've seen a few pieces of really finished work, and now they're happy with the general action that I'm giving them, and so they're happy to lock their cut. Then they're going to start seeing the shots come through in groups for their final comments on the look, and then they're going to see the shots for final. And so the point is that the way the purple bars are scheduled out is all to do with how I provide work for this director. It's what it's all about. And the next stage, which is pipeline, is in order to facilitate the process I just showed. Pipeline, for me, is not automation. A lot of people think of, well, pipeline is because there's a thing I do 100 times a day, and I want to make one button that does that, and that's my pipeline. Or pipeline is how I organize people, and pipeline is a bunch of processes. And it allows me to just do things automatically, you know, and that's the point. And I save money and all this stuff. I don't look at it that way at all. I look at it as pipeline equals repeatability, because what we do is inherently an iterative process. We do it over and over and over on a shot. We work on a shot for weeks and weeks. And so the pipeline needs to be not only facilitate the repeatability on that one shot, but also across all the shots in the scene, across all the scenes in the movie, and for every project at MPC. If the pipeline isn't designed in a way to facilitate workflow and facilitate the same artists to get better and better at what they do, and to repeat winning performance. If they do a great job, I want to be able to do it again. In years past at MPC, when I first got there, this was a real struggle. Without structure and pipeline and specialization, I could have one shot looking beautiful and other shots not looking so great, and I could never figure out what this, you know, how to do it, other than sort of put structure into the way we do things. So that's how I think of pipeline. It's more to do with how I facilitate repeated performances. If I figure out a good way to do something, the pipeline needs to reflect that, not automate it for me so I don't know what I've done, or just do things for me in the background invisibly. It's about taking a workflow and actually making it more visible, because you've reinforced it in the structure of the tools. And actually, to be honest with you, there are things right now in our pipeline that I don't like, and we're trying to change them because it's an ongoing thing, so we're not perfect at this. Just to talk quickly about the implementation, though, of pipeline and technologies. This is probably my most boring slide, but I'll get through it quickly. So there's a, for me it's boring. there's a data management layer at the bottom of everything we do, which really presents a kind of singular working environment to every artist. And it also controls how data is managed around different disks and servers and things like that. And it also represents data as a kind of higher level model to artists at different physical facilities with different data centers around the world. So you have this sort of quite significant amount of work to make that happen. And directly above that is the job environment. So every project has its own setup at MPC so that you can control what software you're using and so forth. Now that we're a global company, there's a huge emphasis on multi-site synchronization of data. So we have a lot of databases, as you can imagine, and a lot of assets that need to be managed, and there's quite a lot of work to make sure teams are in sync with each other. This orange layer sort of represents the actual work that gets done. So you have on the left side of the screen the data we produce, the actual assets, how they're managed, and scene and shot descriptions. You have interactive tools which create new files, and then you have a lot of processes and simulators and different pieces of software we have that operate on assets and create new assets. And ultimately, it all actually produces an image. That's the point. Anybody here working in 3D will know that the 3D is the really hard part. I mean, once you get back to images, you're kind of in a known space, and it's not easy to do compositing, but the amount of actual management of data and all of the interplay of different files is much sort of simplified. So that's kind of, in a sense, a diagram of how pipeline is sort of implemented at a very, very high level. Obviously, every single one of these boxes represents a huge piece of R&D, and there's a whole team working on that part, and there's a whole bunch of artists giving feedback and so forth. So here's a quick look at one shot running through the processes. You have the camera being tracked, markers being painted out, the kid's sword being tracked. That's just the background being color balanced against reference material. You get the rough animation, the lighting blocking, it's just a gray character to position the lights. That's the fur dynamics simulation being run on the animation, final lighting pass, and then the final compositing pass. Now, of course, that probably took us 2 months or something, but that is kind of a snapshot of, because we're doing that shot amongst, I don't know, that scene is maybe 85 shots or something, so you're getting a quick flyby on the stages, but you can sort of see that that represents maybe 13 different people's contribution, different artists and technicians all working on that one shot, different passes and layers all combining. And so we have some tools, some web-based tools which are front ends to the shot production. This is called the Hub Viewer. We have this thing called the Hub, which is this big asset management system we've had for about 4 or 5 years, 5 years now. And this is kind of the web view of it. And so every artist globally can look, I mean, you know, the guy working in Bangalore and the guy working in Vancouver. This is actually a shot I chose last night from my hotel room here. I went online and I opened the Hub Viewer and I looked at a shot I knew was worked on by both Vancouver, India, and London. So you're seeing just the basic shot information there. You can access any, we make QuickTime movies every day, everybody's work, and you can access that and play things and compare work and do quality control that way. And then you can see editorial information, turnover information, problems that are going on with the shot, all kinds of stuff. This is a view of, you can't really see the detail here, but the different bars are different tasks that have been scheduled out for each artist. You can, I don't know if you can see, but the yellow one says Vancouver and one of the red ones says India, so we all can actually, I can actually click on the website and see an artist in Bangalore. I'm in London, I click on the website, I see the artist in Bangalore, I see their face, I see their physical location within the building, and then I can type a little message to them and it pops up on their screen and they can type one back to me, and there's quite a lot of collaboration going on and we're working on the same shots. These are 2 of the QuickTime dailies produced out of the India facility, and then this is a view on the QuickTimes that were produced out of Vancouver by the animation team. And then I can also see, well, just tons of data and information that represents the databases and the shot descriptions and scene descriptions. So that way we can, even though it's a major challenge to keep these teams in sync with each other, I can pretty much find any information I want to find out about the shot production on any given shot. I'm going to show you some slightly more sexy stuff, which is just quick reels on some of the tools that we use. Our water and fire simulator is called Flowline. It's actually a partnership with a company out of Germany called Scanline. And we sort of have an exclusive use of that, and we do a little bit of collaboration on the implementation, for example, of their water software into RenderMan, which is a rendering software, so sort of a tight partnership there. And we've used it on films like this one, Clash of the Titans, with large-scale water simulation, and then this was Percy Jackson, where we used it for fire. So it's a basic kind of fluid simulator. But it's pretty much the leading industry one and produces quite complex results. This was a character that was done in the Vancouver office.